Okay, so let's get started. So today we're going to continue to cover neural nets, the applications for, one of the major applications for hardware systems. So, we are talking about like two very popular neural nets. The one is the multi-layer perceptron, and second one is convolutional neural nets, CNN. So, the first one we covered was this one in slide 17, what is called like a multi-layer perceptron, which only has fully connected layers, right? So that means you have multiple layers, input layer and output layer. They actually have full connections between any pair of neurons, right? So that's MLP. So what this neural net can do for us? So let's say we provide some input. Let's say this one is one of the popular tasks is the image classification, right? So you given images input, and the neural net tells you what the image is, right? So let's say this is a very simple classifier, distinguishing only dog and cat. Let's say, no. 손가락으로 하면 나오는데 손가락으로 하면 나오는데 펜으로 쓰니까 안 나오네요. 배터리가 다 됐나? 응? 오케이. It starts to work. 자, 이제 됐네요. 자, so one thing is like image classification. Let's say you provide some image of, let's say, dog. Something like this, and these like values are pixel value input. And in this case, we only have two classes. Let's say dog and cat. So let's say the first class is dog, and second class is cat, right? And what it does is it does a bunch of like a matrix multiply plus vector computation, and eventually what outputs is it gives you a vector of probability. So let's say the output was, let's say, 0.8 and 0.2. That means it's likely that with 80% of chance this one is dog. Otherwise, with 20% of chance this is cat, or things like that. So that's basically what this MLP does for image classification. So that's basically the first one, the first type of neural nets we looked at. And second one is convolutional neural nets, which looks like this. This is slide 29. So the distinct feature of this CNN is that it actually has a special layer called convolution layers. Here, see, for example, let's say it has like a 5.5 convolution, So it actually, this one is one example of convolutional neural nets called LUNET. And this one actually has a bunch of convolution layers plus subsampling or max pooling layer. So, it does a convolution computation. And what is convolution? So here is the example of convolution here. So if you see this picture, so let's say this one's the input image, and let's say this one is like what is called filter, convolution filter. And then what it computes is, this one is, in this example, it's like a 3x3, filter. And this one is, let's say, input image. And it computes a convolution. And convolution is, in this case, 2D convolution. So 2D convolution is, basically sum of products for these corresponding entries in this like stencil. Because in this example, this like a 9 value actually corresponds to the first like 9 values in the image. So it basically computes like a sum of products between these corresponding entries, and that actually generates like a one output pixel. So in this case, this specific example is a 4 times 0, 0 times 0, 0 times 0, 0 times 0, 1 times 0, and so on. Basically, you calculate sum of products, and the final output will become like a one output value pixel. That's what this convolution does. And you process for the entire image by sliding this like a filter. Okay, that's the output image. And a good thing about this convolution is that it actually captures local feature, because in the previous example, MLP, basically every neuron was connected to every output neuron, right? So there's but there's no notion of locality because everything is connected to everything. But in this case, it actually the filter actually slides through the image to capture the specific local a feature in image, for example. So if you actually expand this thing, now you can actually expand it to a multiple input channel, because in the previous channel we assume we only have only one input image and one a filter. But if you actually have RGB, let's say you have color image, then we actually have three input maps, feature maps, right? Because red, green, and blue. So in this case, we have three input maps and three filters actually constitute a set of filters. And that's the case. So here we have, let's say we have RGB channels, three input channels, and we have input image. In this case, this channel is RGB, a three-channel image, and three input filters. Then we actually apply filter for corresponding images, corresponding channels, and then we add them up to generate one output pixel. Okay, so that's kind of 3D input case, because we now consider multiple input channels from the input, right? So that's basically 3 input case, and we further extend this thing to have multiple output channels, because now we actually have multiple sets. In this case, we have M sets, 1, 2, 3, 4, M set. When M distinct feature, distinct filters, set of filters, then we apply these filters to this image to generate the output value of the pixel in output channel 1, and we apply the second filter to the same set of image, and then to generate the output pixel in the output channel 2, and so on. So by having multiple sets of filters, in this case we have M sets of filters, we can actually produce M output feature maps. Okay, that's basically the concept of output channels. Then how, this one actually involves high dimensional matrix multiplication, right? Because we are dealing with 3-dimensional structures, actually in this case 4-dimensional, because we have multiple sets of filters, right? So we have 4-dimensional matrix multiply, right? So but 4-dimensional memory access is pretty not very efficient, because if you learn cache and this DRAM access, we want to make this memory access as sequential as possible to maximize the locality, right? So what we do is we actually apply some a transformation called image to column. This is called, by the way, this is called image to column transformation, IM to call. Okay, so here this is a concrete example of simple convolution operation. So think about very simple. So let me explain the setup of this example first. So we have the input image size is 3 by 3. Okay, so our input, the image size is a 3 by 3. So this is a 3 by 3 image, and we have 3 input channels. These 3 is input number of input channels. You can think of it as RGB, red, green, and blue. And each image actually has a 3 by 3 pixels. And secondly, so if you see, let's say we have RGB. So this is a red image, green image, and blue image. We have 3 input channels. And each image actually has 9 pixels, D0 through D8. And let's think about second thing is the filter. So here is a filter. So if you see, we actually need to have 3 2-dimensional filters, right? Because we actually have 3 input channels. So we need to have 3 filters as a set. So in this case, filter size is 2 by 2, and not this one. Filter size is 2 by 2, and we need 3 filters in a set, because we need to cover RGB. So this one is the same as number of input channel, right? Because we need to same number of filters to apply convolution. So when you actually calculate the convolution, you basically apply this filter to this image, this filter to this image, and this filter to this image, and then you add them up to get the output pixel, just one output value. Okay, and then also note that we actually have 2 sets of filters. because we have like, if here's one, this is set 1, first set, and this is set 2, second set. So we actually have 2 sets of filters. So now that if you apply convolution, then now you end up getting 2 output feature maps. There are 2 output channels, right? So this is for output channel 0, output channel 1, and this is for output channel 2. Okay, so now you end up getting 2 output feature maps, output 2, because we have the filters. 2, this is output channels, by the way. This is the output number of channels, because we have 2 sets, right? 2 sets of filters, and then each output has a dimension of 2 by 2. Why is it so? Why the output pixel actually has dimension of 2 by 2? Because you apply convolution. Let's say, think about this case. So here, because the output convolution kernel actually has dimension of 2 by 2, and so this one, if you see this like a black box. So if you apply, these 3 filters to the corresponding, input pixels, then we end up getting like 1 output pixel, right? And then we actually slide this filters to the next set of. Don't worry about this thing yet. So we move on to the next set of pixels. Then actually we end up getting the next output pixel, and so on, right? So in this case, we have like 4 distinct locations we can apply these filters, right? Because we have upper left, upper right, lower left, lower right. So we actually have end up having 4 different places we can apply this filter. That's the reason why we actually have output dimension of 2 by 2, because we're gonna have 4 pixels, 4 output pixels each for each filter, right? And then we actually have 2 sets of filters, so that we actually have 2 output channels. So the output number of pixels at the output is 8, because we have 2 channels, 2 output channels, and each output channel is 2 by 2 in dimension, right? So that's basically what happens here. And how it's actually implemented. So I'm going to explain this IM2 call thing, image to column. So image to column is basically we transform this like a block of pixels into like 1-dimensional structure. Okay. So if you think about this case here, let me erase this thing. So how we can calculate the first output pixel? So to calculate the first output pixel, as I said before, we need to. I'm not going to use red. I'm going to use violet, maybe. It's neutral color. So here, let's think about how we can calculate 1 output pixel. So in order to do that, we have to multiply this thing with these pixels, and this thing with these pixels, and this thing with these pixels, and then we add them up. Then we're going to end up getting like 1 output pixel. Right? That's what happens. So here, so if you actually write them up, basically the output pixel 0, 0 is sum of d0 times f0 plus d1 times f1, d3 times f2, d4 times f3, right? And then you move on to the a green channel, and then you do again this is for a red, and this is for, again, you do the same thing for green. You do the same thing for blue. So if you add them all these 12 terms, then you're gonna end up getting this 1 output pixel value, right? So that's the reason why we actually have, and this IM2 call, this image to column transformation is basically we make them transform them into 1 dimension. So here, if you see, we have a 12 pixel value here, a 12 filter values here, and 12 pixel values here. Okay. So what we do is now, after you do this transformation, you can simply do this a matrix, inner product computation. right? Because now you have like one-dimensional array which has all necessary pixels, like this thing. All necessary pixels are here on one side, and all the necessary filter values are on the other side. So because we have two vectors here, this is vector 1 and this is vector 2, because we have two vectors, now we can simply compute sum of products, like inner products between these two vectors, and we end up getting this output pixel value. Okay, so this one is what you just computed, like from here, is this thing. Okay? 그러니까 우리말로 좀 설명을 하면은 결국은 이게 2디멘셔널로 이걸 할 수도 있어요. 원래 2디멘셔널 그냥 아까 얘기한 대로 그냥 매트릭스 여기 읽고 여기 필터에서도 여기 읽어서 그냥 더한 다음에 그 다음 채널에서도 여기 이렇게 읽을 수도 있는데, 그렇게 하면 메모리 액세스 패턴이 굉장히 들쑥날쑥하겠죠. 여기서 이렇게 읽고 또 여기서 이렇게 읽고 막 이렇게 들쑥날쑥하니까 이게 하는 게 뭐냐면은 요런 그 데이터 스트럭처, 그러니까 2디멘셔널 이미지의 셋을 1디멘셔널 스트럭처로 이렇게, 그러니까 사실 2디멘셔널, 3디멘셔널 스트럭처를 2디멘셔널 스트럭처로 바꾸는 거예요. 디멘션을 하나 낮추는 거죠. 그럼 어떻게 되냐면 첫 번째 아웃풋 픽셀을 계산하기 위한 모든 그 애들을 하나의 같은 컬럼에다 넣어요. 같은 컬럼으로 이렇게 쭉 펴서 넣고, 그 다음에 거기에 커러스펀딩한 그 필터들의 그 값들도 여기 12개의 밸류가 있죠. 필터들의 값도 쫙 펴가지고 그냥 하나의 그냥 원디멘셔널 벡터로 만들어요. 그런 다음에 얘네들을 쭉 순차적으로 읽으면서 이걸 서로 커러스펀딩 엔트리들끼리 곱셈을 해서 더하면, 그러면 어떻게 되냐면은 실제로는 우리가 지금 이거를 2D 보기 좋게 하기 위해서 이렇게 2디멘셔널 이렇게 버티컬하게 그렸지만, 실제로는 이게 메모리 안에서 어떻게 레이아웃이 되어 있냐면 이거 트랜스포즈를 해요. 트랜스포즈 해가지고 실제로는 이것도 메모리 안에서 이렇게 생겼어요. 그럼 어떻게 되냐면은 실제로 이 아웃풋 픽셀을 계산하기 위해서 이 벡터를 쭉 시퀀셜하게 읽고, 그 다음에 두 번째 이 필터의 값을 쭉 시퀀셜하게 읽으면 두 개의 시퀀셜한 벡터를 읽어서 커러스펀딩한 엔트리들끼리 값을 서머 프로덕트를 구하면 걔가 이 아웃풋 픽셀의 값이 되는 거예요. 그죠? Okay? That's the IM2call very popular, very widely used transformation. Basically, we reduce the dimension of these input channels so that we make this access as sequential as possible to maximize locality. 맞습니다. Very good point. 문제 올라오고 그랬는데 what's the problem? 중복되죠. 왜냐하면 여기 보세요. 다음 슬라이드에도 있는데 여기 보시면은 What is the problem with this transformation? 보시면 이쪽은 상관없는데 여기에서 보시면은 이 노란색 박스로 되어 있는 게 뭐냐면은 이게 똑같은 엔트리거든요. D4가 지금 예를 들면 4군데 나오죠. 그 다음에 여기서도 D4가 4군데 나오고 D4가 4군데 나오고 여러 번 나오잖아요. 그럼 무슨 얘기냐면 원래는 메모리 사이즈가 4x4, 2x2, 3x3 인풋 이미지 3개였는데 이걸 실제로 IM2 콜을 적용하면은 중복되는 엔트리들이 생겨요. 그게 왜 그러냐면 우리가 컨볼루션을 할 때 요번 한번 딱 블럭을 한번 우리가 계산을 한 다음에 다음 블럭으로 넘어갔을 때 사실 오버랩이 있잖아요. 이전 블럭이랑 다음 블럭이랑. 지금 물론 가정은 유니스트라이드라는 가정인데 유니스트라이드라는 거는 슬라이딩을 할 때 한 픽셀씩 움직인다는 가정으로 하면. 근데 꼭 유니스트라이드일 필요는 없어요. 사실 유니스트라이드가 아니라 뭐 스트라이드가 뭐 2나 4나 뭐 이래도 상관없거든요. 그러니까 뭐 이렇게 점프를 할 수도 있어요. 근데 어쨌거나 충분히 크지 않다면 지금 우리가 막 계산한 그 블럭의 지금 액세스한 블럭이랑 그 다음 우리가 컨볼루션 계산하는 블럭이랑 서로 인풋 픽셀 값에 오버랩이 있을 거 아니에요. 그런 엔트리들은 다 여러 번 나오겠죠. 이 메모리 안에서. 그래서 얘의 단점이 메모리 사용량을 증가시키는 단점이 있어요. 그러니까 액세스의 로컬리티를 좋게 해주는 대신에 메모리의 사용량이 늘어요. 그런 단점이 있죠. 그래서 여기 보시면은 그래서 그래서 하여튼 그런 문제가 있고, so there are like two popular libraries that are used for this like neural nets, developed by NVIDIA. The first one is cuBLAS. cuBLAS is basically general purpose matrix multiply, like a linear algebra library. So it actually provides matrix multiply, highly optimized matrix multiply, matrix vector multiply functions. So you can make use of that. And also there's another like library called cuDNN. This is also from NVIDIA. And they actually provide, there are version 4, version 5. I think today's like version is version 9. So it's pretty, a little bit outdated. So in version 4, their optimization focused on avoiding duplication in input data in memory, because exactly addressing that problem. Because if you do this like image to column transformation, it increases the locality, but it actually bloat the memory usage, right? So in V4 they actually improved the algorithm to minimize this like a duplication, and V5 is they use like Vinograd transformation convolution, which is more efficient. So these two libraries are very widely used, especially on GPU. Okay. 네. 네. 역시 맞습니다. 네. 잘못됐어요, 사실은. 제가 이게 대충 좀 하고 넘어갔는데 크로스펀딩 엔트리가 어떻게 되냐면은 이게 지금 정확하게 그림이 좀 사실 잘못 그려졌어요. 이게 이분이 잘못 그리셨는데 어떻게 되냐면은 원래 매핑이 이렇게 돼야 되겠죠. F0랑 D0랑 매핑되고 F1이랑 D1이랑 매핑되고 F2랑 D3랑 매핑되고 F4랑 D4랑 매핑돼야 되겠죠. 요 오더가 요렇게 매핑되는 게 아니라 F3랑 D4랑 매핑되고 F2랑 D3, F1이랑 D1, F0, D0. 그죠? 그럼 여기서도 F3랑 D4, F2랑 D3 이런 식으로 매핑돼야 되겠죠. 약간 그림이 좀 잘못됐어요. 대충 얼렁뚱땅 넘어가려고 그랬는데. 네. 잘 이해를 하신 것 같네요. 지금 포인트 하시는 거 보니까. Any other questions? Okay, so let's move on. So by using this convolution, I mean there's a lot of the accuracy of classification has improved a lot compared to the previous version of MLP. Introduction of convolution actually was regarded as an innovation because it improved the accuracy of classification a lot at the cost of increased compute intensity, because a lot more computation to calculate convolution. So it actually it pays more like computing power to increase the accuracy of classification. So here, as I said, when I first introduced neural nets, the basic idea was starting from this like image. Now you eventually go to the final like classification layer, and as you move on to the later layers, it actually identifies more like high-level features. And so in the previous, in level 1, you only detect less edges, like very primitive features. As you move on, now you start to recognize more complex features like, some like object or part of image, and then eventually at the end of these layers, you eventually recognize very complex feature like a face or the name of the object and so on. Okay. 그러니까 여기서 보시면은 약간 그림에서 좀 보시면은 이쪽이 약간 로우 레벨 피처고요. 그러니까 실제로 컨볼루션을 적용했을 때 그 나온 아웃풋 피처 맵을 이렇게 그래피컬하게 표현을 해봤을 때 여기에서는 보면은 되게 그냥 이렇게 선 같은 게 이제 어떤 방향으로 가 있는지 되게 피처들이 보이는 반면에 여기에서는 좀 더 복잡한 피처들이 보이고, 뭐 예를 들면 좀 이렇게 이렇게 좀 엣지들의 셋으로 좀 보이는 원 같은 것도 보이고 여러 가지 보이죠. 근데 여기에서 이제 좀 더 완전 복잡한 이제 뭐 고양이 아니면 뭐 개 뭐 이런 레벨의 어떤 피처들이 보이는 거죠. 그래서 이런 것들을 이제 보고 마지막에 이제 클래시피케이션을 하게 되면 결과적으로 벡터가 나오는데 어떤 클래스일 확률이 몇 %인지를 알려주는 벡터가 나오겠죠. 오케이? 네. 맞아. 아, 이건 그냥 칼라를 그냥 사람들이 좀 더 덧입힌 거예요. 포토샵을 좀 한 건데, 그러니까 약간 어떤 이런 거겠죠. 그러니까 아웃풋, 뭐 피처 맵이 하여튼 여러 가지가 있는데 그 값의 밸류에 따라서 약간 좀 그냥 템퍼러처 맵처럼 그린 거겠죠. 그러니까 뭐냐면 좀 값이 예를 들면 아웃풋 피처 맵이 예를 들면 여러 개 있잖아요. 이게 보면 이제 하나의 이 박스가 아웃풋 피처 맵 하나거든요. 근데 보통 이제 아웃풋 피처 맵 한 개가 그 예를 들면 어떤 피처들의 대응이 돼요. 보통 이제 채널, 아웃풋 채널이라고 했는데 아웃풋 채널 하나가 보통 이제 특정한 이제 피처들을 캡처하는 이제 그런 역할을 하는데, 여기에서 그냥 그린 거는 사실은 이게 컬러로 그린 건 그냥 포토샵한 거예요. 이거 그냥 원래는 그냥 되게 덜한 그냥 그레이 이미지로 나오는데 그거를 그냥 뭐 좀 컬러를 입혀가지고 그냥 볼만하게 그냥 그린 거고요. 예, 뭐 그렇죠. 네. 그렇게 해가지고 일단은 그린 거로 생각하시면 될 것 같아요. Okay, so let's move on to training. So what's the training of neural nets? So far, we assume we are given those weights, like filter values. So, our assumption, by the way, this is called inference because inference, there are two things, inference and training. So let's say this is like an inference. So inference is you provide input, maybe some image, and the output is the classification. It's like a dog or a cat, things like that, right? So that's called inference. 추론이죠, 추론. And then the question is, we assume this like weights are given, right? The filter values. Filter values are given. But the question is how we can determine these filter values or weights. How we can determine those parameters. And that's basically the what is called training. So training is basically, let's say we have, again, let's use the same example, like a dog and cat. These are two input classifier, two output classifier. So let's say we have he provides some input image again, cute dog. And let's say this one's dog. And this is like a neural net computes the probability of dog as 0.8 and cat as 0.2. Okay? Of course, we, based on like this number, we classify this one as dog, right? But the answer is not perfect. Why is it not perfect? Because if this one's perfect classifier, the probability must be 1.0 and 0.0. This one's correct answer, right? But not perfect classifier, so it actually has some probability of error, right? So the probability is 0.8, 0.2. So then the question is how we can minimize error rate. Okay? So the training is a procedure that finds the set of weights or set of parameters that actually minimize the error. Okay? So it's a procedure that finds a set of weights or parameters or filter values, they are the same thing, that minimize error. That's the training. Okay? So in order to train this neural net, you need to have a lot of labeled images, for example. So let's say this one is dog, this one is cat. You actually show a lot of images to train this network, and eventually this neural net actually adjusts itself by changing this parameter value a little bit to minimize those error rate, misclassification rate. Okay, that's basically the training. So in this case, if you assume simple MLP, this is MLP, right? If you assume simple MLP, those edges are basically weights, right? Because we actually have the neuron actually has incoming edges from the neuron, and there's some associated weight value, and those weights are basically the filter. I mean the same thing, the parameter, the weights. Okay, so we actually try to find the optimal value of this W and W2 because this edge between neurons correspond to a weight value. So how we can find? And by the way, this is called a backward. The training is usually employing a technique called backpropagation. So idea of backpropagation is very simple. So before talking about very much details, how would you train this thing? How would you fix this weight value? So let's say you have again this is the same example. the ideal, the correct answer is 1.0 and 0.0 for this image. But if you do the inference, let's say the current neural net actually gives a probability of 0.8 and 0.2. Then how would you adjust it? Adjust the parameter to minimize this like error rate. In other words, how you can make these like vectors closer to the correct like value, 1.0 and 0.0. How you can make it? 어떻게 하면 될까요? 요 만약에 웨이티드 값을 조정한다 그러면은 자 우리가 이렇게 값을 얻으면은 이렇게 값을 얻었으면은 요 웨이트는 어떻게 조정해야 될까요? 지금 동그라미 치는 웨이트는 어떻게 조정하면 저 에러가 더 줄어들까요? 에러라는 건 예를 들면 0.8에서 1.0 빼면 0.2, 뭐 그다음에 여기서 0.2에서 0을 빼면 또 0.2, 뭐 이러면 그게 에러 레이시라고 치면 어떻게 줄이면 되겠어요? 그냥 생각만으로 생각을 해보면 그럼 이렇게 물어볼까? 어떤 엣지가 더 중요하고 어떤 엣지가 덜 중요하고 이런 건 어떻게 정량화할 수 있을까요? 어떤 엣지가 더 이 클래시피케이션에서 더 중요하고 어떤 엣지가 덜 중요한지는 어떻게 정량화할 수 있죠? 그렇죠. 아주 간단한 아이디어죠. 특정한 모든 엣지의 값을 픽스해 놓고 특정 엣지의 값을 조금만 바꿔봐요. 조금만 바꿔봤을 때 아웃풋이 되게 막 좋아지는 방향으로 막 간다. 그 프로바빌리티가 좋아지는 방향으로 가면 그쪽 방향으로 가는 게 맞죠. 그죠? 근데 거꾸로 방향을 뭐 예를 들면 이렇게 조정해봤더니 거꾸로 에러 레이시 나빠진다. 그럼 그쪽 방향으로 가면 안 되겠죠. 근데 우리가 그걸 수학적으로 하는 개념이 뭐예요? 미분, 편미분. 그죠? 미분하면 되잖아요. 그러니까 무슨 얘기냐면은 우리가 어떤 에러 레이시라는 게 있을 때 에러 레이시라는 걸 정의한다고 칩시다. 어떤 에러 레이시라는 게 있을 때 그죠? 에러 레이시라는 E라는 펑션이 있을 때 걔의 이 웨이트가 만약에 WIJ라고 하면은 IJ라는 걸 있으면 WIJ에 대한 편미분을 구하면 되겠죠. 그죠? 편미분을 구해서 편미분이 크다는 얘기는 무슨 웨이트를 값 조금만 바꿔도 값이 많이 바뀐다는 얘기죠. 그죠? 편미분이 작다는 얘기는 이게 웨이트를 많이 바꿔도 값이 그냥 아웃풋 그 에러 레이트엔 별 영향이 없다는 거잖아요. 그죠? 그렇다고 하면 그럼 어떻게 해야 돼? 그러면 우리가 먼저 그 민감한 파라미터들을 값을 잘 셋업을 해야 되겠죠. 그죠? That's the idea of that's the idea of backpropagation. So we start from this error rate. Let's say we have get some error value. Then we actually compute which edge, how much impact each edge actually has on the final output error rate. We compute that, and we divide this like amount of error to this weight parameter by different amount. That's the high-level idea. So I already explained the high-level idea. So let's move on to the more details, concrete like a mathematical representation. So here's a model. This is a model of a new. So here, but what this actually this one actually show is this thingy. So let's think about this single neuron. Let's say I'm going to use different color. Let's say we have red one. So this one is the output neuron. So let's open this thing. Open this like a red output neuron. Okay? So this was a mathematical model of this output like a neuron. So here is a bunch of like incoming neuron. Let's say this one is input neuron. Like let's say in the previous example, because we are talking about this thing, this one actually has like 4 input neurons, right, from the previous layer. So we have, let's say this one is input 1, input 2, input 3, input 4. This one actually corresponds to here, like input 1, input 2, input 3, and input 4. Okay? 4 inputs are coming in from the previous layer. And then what we compute is we first compute V of F. By the way, this V of F is basically sum of products. So this one actually computes, weighted sum of the value of the previous, like the neurons in the previous layer. Okay, so this one is V of N. Okay, so we basically calculate sum of products from the previous layer, and we apply what is called activation function. By the way, this one is called activation function. So the activation functions include, so examples of activation functions are sigmoid, or step function, or there's some like a notion of activation function, which is nonlinear function that is applied to the sum of applied to V before we actually provide the value to the output. This activation function is actually correspond to actually biological behavior, because if you remember, the human any neuron, like a real like a biological neuron, actually receive bunch of spikes from the previous layers, previous like a neuron, and if it receives enough number of spikes, then it actually fires. So in a sense, this one is kind of an integrator. I mean, it's like an adder. So you keep accumulating stimulus from the previous layer, and it's eventually it goes up the threshold and it fires, and send the value to the next, send the spike to the next layer, right? So this activation function actually models this kind of behavior. So basically it actually goes above threshold and it fires. Otherwise, it simply suppress the output pulse or output spike, right? So this one's like activation function. Typically we use like sigmoid or step function or LELU, or these are like nonlinear functions that are used for activation. So I'm going to explain more about this thing. So after that, we actually get this like Y function. So Y is the output of the neuron, right? Because we first calculate sum of products. I mean, this like a sum of this weighted sum, and we apply activation function phi here. So we apply activation function, then that will be the output of the neuron, right? So as I said, let's say this one is the output probability, because in this previous example, the output of this entire neural net is the probability of some images being dog or cat. So let's say this one is like a dog, probability for dog. Then the error of this output neuron is, let's say this D of n is the correct answer. Let's say this one is, in the previous example, let's say this is 1.0, the probability. And second one, let's say we calculated the probability is 0.8. Then we actually compute the difference between the two. So E of I is the error. This is the error function. Error of neuron J. Okay? So because the E of J is the error, in this case, let's say this is 0.2, right? Because the correct answer is 1.0, but our computation actually returns like 0.8. The error rate is 0.2, right? So this is the error rate of neuron J. But now we actually have like multiple neurons, right? Because in the previous example, we have 2. In this case, we have 2. So in order to calculate the total error rate, we basically add them up. So we basically add all these numbers. So this one is the total, total error. This one is actually called total error energy, because this one actually takes we actually take the square, because we don't want to be disturbed by the direction of error. So we actually take the square and then add like multiply it by half, and basically add up all these like errors from all the output neurons. Okay, and then in this case, C is the set of output neurons. Okay, so basically we basically multiply this error and add them up and divide it by 2, and that's the total error energy, which is kind of our metric. So we try to minimize this like error energy by training, by adjusting this like weight value. Okay, so that's called backpropagation. Then the question is how we can adjust this specific weight value. 그죠? 어떻게 우리가 weight value를 adjust 할 건가? 그죠? So the goal is, let's say we are given a specific weight value. Let's say this is a synapse value, like weight. Then what is the adjustment or correction of WJI delta? So because we want to actually, based on this error value, we want to adjust this weight value a little bit. And we try to calculate this like a delta value. Delta of you know, WJI for all these like neuron, all these like edges, all synapses, right? So this, we want to calculate this delta. Then how we can do that? So that's shown in the next, like, a little bit mathy, but you know, this one actually, you know, not that difficult. So let's look again. So you know, these actually formula actually were taken from the previous slide, right? They are actually definition. So V is basically sum of products, weighted sum, and Y is, you know, this V of n after activation function, and E is the like error for specific like a neuron, and this like epsilon thing is the sum of all these like sum of square errors from all output neurons, right? That's that kind of definition from the previous slide. Then the question is, you know, we want to compute this thing. So correction for specific like a neuron, a specific like a weight or synapse. By the way, the notation is like a JI. Is that, you know, JI is the weight value between neuron from like a neuron I to neuron J. This kind of convention, like a notation here. So this is weight value WIJ. WJI is basically, you know, neuron I, weight value from neuron I to neuron J. Okay, so that's the, you know, our notation, the convention. Then we want to actually compute this thing, like this is correction value. Correction for specific like a weight value, WJI. Then how we compute that? So we can actually calculate these partial products and partial derivative. You know, we basically take the partial derivative of total error energy over, you know, delta of WJI. Okay, and we actually add two like minus sign here because, you know, the direction of change is to reduce the error rate. 그죠? 그러니까 다시 좀 설명을 하면 결국은 뭐냐면은 우리가 기존에 있던 인퍼런스를 했을 때 썼던 이제 웨이트 값이 있는데 그 값을 어떻게 조정을 해야 되잖아요. 지금 에러를 파이널 그 아웃컴을 보고 조정해야 되잖아요. 조정을 해야 되는데 어떻게 조정을 하냐면 이 편미분의 값. 그러니까 이 편미분의 값은 뭐냐면 우리가 요 웨이트의 값을 바꿨을 때 에러 레이트, 토탈 에러가 얼마나 변화할 건가를 나타내는 값이잖아요. 요 값에다가 마이너스 사인을 붙이고, 왜 마이너스 사인을 붙이냐면 원하는 거는 반대로 리듀스하는 방향, 에러 레이트를 줄이는 방향으로 가려고 하는 거기 때문에 이걸 늘리는 방향으로 가는 게 아니라, 그러니까 가능하면은 이 E를 줄이려는 방향으로 가니까 마이너스를 붙이고요. 왜냐하면 이쪽 방향으로 움직여야지 이제 에러 레이트 줄어들겠죠. 마이너스 방향으로 움직여야지. 그 다음에 요 에타라는 파라미터는 이건 this is called learning rate. This is called meta parameter, hyperparameter, by the way. Hyperparameter is, you know, you adjust it to control the rate of learning. 근데 러닝 레이트를 만약에 크게 하면 어떻게 돼요? 크게 할 때랑 작게 할 때 어떤 트레이드오프가 있겠어요? 러닝 레이트를 크게 할 때랑 작게 할 때. 이게 만약에 작으면 어떻게 되겠어요? 값이 0에 가깝다. 그러면은 값이 수렴하는데 하세월걸이 걸리겠죠. 왜냐하면 한 번 인퍼런스 해가지고 다시 값을 백 프로퍼게이션 할 때마다 그 웨이트가 되게 조금씩 변할 거 아니에요. 그럼 실제로 어떤 우리가 원하는 그 단계에 도달하거나 값이 세츄레이션 될 때 굉장히 많은 이터레이션이 필요하겠죠. 이미지를 계속 피딩하면서, 그죠? 그런 반면 대신 에브노멀한 비헤이비어는 별로 없어요. 그래서 되게 스무스하게 움직일 거예요 아마. 값이 그 에러 레이시, 그죠? 근데 만약에 이 에러 레이시 되게 크면 어떻게 되겠어요? 그러면은 얘가 한꺼번에 웨이트 값이 막 이렇게 막 크게 바뀔 거 아니에요. 크게 바뀌면은 이게 언스테이블한 단점. 수렴 속도는 빠르지만 빠르게 이거를 찾을 수도 있겠지만 재수가 없으면은 이게 언스테이블한 비헤이비어를 보일 수가 있겠죠. 그러니까 로컬한 그 미니멈 에러 포인트에 빠지는 게 아니라 이게 막 딴 데로 갔다가 막 이렇게 스페이스로 움직이니까 이게 굉장히 뭔가 막 갑자기 그 정확도가 확 에러 레이시 확 올라갈 수도 있고 뭔가 이렇게 되게 언스테이블한 비율을 보이겠죠. 그래서 이것도 러닝 레이시라는 하이퍼 파라미터인데 얘도 굉장히 세팅을 잘 해줘야 돼요. 어쨌거나, so the basic idea is correction for this specific like a WJI, which is like a delta WJI, is minus eta multiplied by the derivative, delta epsilon over, delta WJI. 요거를 그러니까 아셔야 되는데, then the question is how we can calculate this thing. Okay, this thing, right? So here, this thing can be rewritten like this. So delta epsilon over delta WJI is by applying chain rule. By applying chain rule, delta epsilon over delta WJI can be rewritten like this. Okay, I'm not going to read it. So you can apply this thing, because these two cancel out, these two cancel out, these two cancel out. So eventually they are the same thing, right? So how we can calculate this thing? The first term, let's think about what this first term will look like. So to obtain the first term, we actually take this thing, right? So we actually take this, take the derivative, partial derivative of the first, this equation. Then, all the other things go away, and eventually we only end up having EJ components, because we basically take derivative on specific components of E, specific output neuron. So all the other output neurons go away, and only the E of J will remain. 그죠? 얘는 이렇게 되겠죠. 미분하면. What about second one? This one is delta E of J over delta Y of J. So here for this thing, we take this one. 그죠? 미분하면 어떻게 돼? 미분하면 this one is only minus 1. 그죠? 얘는 결국은 this one is minus 1. 이걸 양쪽을 미분하면, 편미분하면. 그죠? 그 다음에 얘는 세 번째 거는 if you take the third components, we actually take that from here. Right? So, this one corresponds to here, this one corresponds to here, this one corresponds to here, like that. So, if you take the derivative with regard to the value of Vj, actually this one is the variable we take the derivative on. So, you just take it, then we simply just take the derivative of the activation function. 그죠? 그러니까 여기 이 V of J라는 거에 대해서 편미분을 취하는 거니까 그냥 이게 어떻게 보면 인디펜던트 베리어블이잖아요. 그냥 여기다 그냥 미분 기호만 써주면 되겠죠. 그죠? 그러니까 미분 기호만 써주면 되고. Finally, the last term, this thing. So if you take the derivative from partial derivative from this one, then eventually you end up getting this Yj of Yi of n. 그죠? So this one is it. So this one is the one we are looking for. 그죠? n이 뭐냐면요, nth iteration인데 이게 뭐냐면은 그 iteration count인데 이게 보통 트레이닝을 할 때 이미지를 여러 개 계속 인풋을 주면서 계속 이거를 캘큘레이션 하거든요. 그러니까 첫 번째 이미지가 들어오면 first iteration이고 두 번째 몇 번째 지금 이미지가 들어오는 걸 그냥 파라미터 n으로 n is like an iteration number. 자, 이렇게 되는 거죠. 그래서 실제로 어떻게 되냐면은 우리가 이미지를 가지고 쫙 레이블된 이미지를 가지고 쫙 한번 인퍼런스 한 다음에 걔 에러 값을 구해서 그거를 거꾸로 요걸 계산해서 그거만큼 각각의 웨이트 값을 다 모든 뉴런의 웨이트 값을 조정해 주면 됩니다. 그러면 아마도 에러 레이시 조금 줄겠죠. 전부 다. 왜냐하면 모든 웨이시 전부 다 그 에러 레이스를 낮추는 방향으로 조금씩 델타 조정이 될 거니까. 그죠? 그래서 결국 어떻게 하냐면 그렇게 계속 반복을 해서 언젠가는 이게 세츄레이션이 되거나 또는 우리가 더 이상 레이블된 데이터가 없으면은 이제 끝. 그죠? 그렇게 되는 것이죠. Then what is the activation function, by the way? So if the activation function we considered previously is this like a step function, like long slides ago. So step function, but the problem with step function is not differentiable at 0. So because we need to take a different the derivative differential version of this phi activation function. But the problem with this step function is this one step function is not differentiable at 0. right? So instead, but we need, this one needs to be differential because it must be differentiable in order to train, in order for training. So we actually use, let's say, sigmoid function, which is, defined as this. So this one is differentiable, even at 0. So this is one example. Sigmoid is sigmoid or hypertangent, TANH, or ReLU. They are all like popular activation function. But today, this one is the winner, ReLU. ReLU is the most widely used activation function. I'm going to explain like in a later slide. So hopefully, this is a very short section, but understand the concept of training, and at least get the high-level idea of how we can actually train these neural nets. Okay, the training means basically we set the optimal set of parameters or weights in the neural nets using the labeled inputs. Okay. Questions about training? Joe? Okay, so let's move on. So, I'm going to go over multiple different issues with today's neural nets. So how we can deal with, some hurdles in deep neural nets. This is called deep neural nets because now we actually have a lot of layers. In a LeNet, in 1980s, we only had how many layers, 2 layers. That's only we have a very small number of layers. But today it's a neural net. It's 100 layers or very a lot of layers. Okay, so that's the reason why it's called deep neural nets, because we have many layers. So there are several problems with hurdles, problems with these deep neural nets. The first one is a diminishing effect of backpropagation. Okay, let me introduce a high-level idea first. What is the problem with backpropagation? Diminishing, vanishing gradient problem. It's also called a vanishing gradient problem. What is the vanishing gradient? So the problem with backpropagation is that you actually start from the end of the neural nets. You can compute this error rate there, and then you propagate this error rate back to the layers, right? So, but the problem is, as you move back to the front end of the neural net, this gradient, this delta value becomes very small and small, and even 0. Okay, that's one problem. There's a diminishing. This is called a vanishing gradient problem. And second problem is lack of training data. Of course, more data is always good. I mean, lack of training data. But the guideline is that if you compare the number of parameters, let's say number of weights, like Wij, and you compare the number of inputs, like training input, the general rule of thumb, this number must be much greater than this thing. Okay? 그러니까 보통 뉴럴넷을 트레이닝할 때는 트레이닝이 잘 되려면은 우리가 트레이닝하려는 파라미터의 수보다 이미지 인풋의 수가 훨씬 많아야 돼요. 그래야지 트레이닝이 잘 돼요. 안 그러면 무슨 문제가 생기죠? 오버피팅이라는 문제가 생기죠. 오버피팅. 오버피팅 문제가 생기는데, 오버피팅이라는 문제는 그 뉴럴넷이 예를 들면 적은 양의 데이터로 트레이닝 되면 고 인풋에 대해서는 거의 퍼펙트하게 잘 맞추는데 거기서 조금만 벗어나도 못 맞추는 현상. This one is this is called vanishing gradient problem. This is called overfitting problem. Okay. So there are two major problems in training deep neural nets. So I'm going to go over what are the problems one by one. So the first problem is diminishing delta, or diminishing vanishing gradient problem. So here is a problem. So here, if you see, by the way, this is called a local gradient. So local gradient is, let's say this part. Let's see this thing first. 그러니까 if you remember this slide, so if you see here, so this one is the amount of like delta. Basically, this one determines how much we have to correct the each weight, right? And you can actually rewrite this thing to be, let's say you get like this this part with like this eta. You actually group them together, and let's say you define as like this delta, okay, delta of n. So delta of n is basically, you know, the older term except this like, you know, the derivative of activation. So in this case, you know, eta plus, you know, error value plus the value of y. So that's if you get all these terms together, and let's say this one, define this one as delta, which is called local gradient. So let's say this is local gradient function. Then you can actually rewrite the value, rewrite this like a delta value to actually, this is not true. It also include like this thing. So we include like this, you know, the derivative of derivative of activation function, and basically this one is sum of all the like backpropagated like a delta from the previous like from the next layer. Because in general, we actually have like a multiple layers, like hidden layers in the middle. So in order to compute the component, you actually need to take this like a delta from all these like a all the neurons in the next layer, and this one is basically add them up, the contributions from all the neurons in the next layer, because this contribution will be backpropagated to the current layer. So this one is like called like a local gradient. And the problematic part is this part. So this part is, whenever you calculate this delta of Wij, this term is always there. I mean, this is like a derivative of this activation function. But if you actually assume sigmoid function as activation, this is sigmoid. By the way, this is the same thing as the previous slide, except that it's actually, it rewrote this function, assuming this a equals 1. Basically, this one is basically the same as this one. Basically the same. The value, basically it's a rewritten form, because we assume a is 1, and it actually it's reorganized terms such that now this one, if you multiply part term by exp v of j thing. If you multiply with this, then you're going to end up getting this form. So it's sigmoid, same sigmoid function with like value of a assumed to be 1. So the same sigmoid function. And the problem is, if you take the derivative of this activation function, then the value is always less than for a quarter, like 1/4. 그러니까 항상 예를 들면 레벨을 넘어갈 때마다 요거를 항상 계산해가지고 그 델타 조정을 해주고, 그 델타 조정한 거를 또 다시 다음 레벨에 넘겨주고, 이런 식으로 계속 프로파게이션이 돼야 되는데, 한 번 레벨을 넘어갈 때마다 요 텀 때문에 값이 절대값이 항상 4분의 1 이하로 항상 준다는 거예요, 델타 값이. 그죠? That is a problem called like vanishing gradient. So 그래서 굉장히 많이 프로파게이션이 되면은 저 앞쪽에 갔을 때는 결국은 이 그레디언트 델타의 값이 거의 0에 수렴한다는 거죠. 그러니까 유용한 정보를 못 준다는 거죠, 이 에러 레이트. 그러니까 이 아웃풋 레이어에 가까운 웨이트들은 잘 트레이닝이 되는데, 이게 앞쪽으로 갈수록 점점 이 그레디언트 값이 점점 델타가 줄어들면서 결국은 맨 처음에 시작하는 레이어로 오면 거의 0에 가까운 값이 된다는 거죠. 그래서 앞에 있는 레이어의 웨이트들이 잘 트레이닝이 안 된다는 거예요. Okay? So that's a problem called like a vanishing gradient. So the one solution is actually we use what's called ReLU, rectified linear unit. And ReLU is a very simple function. This is ReLU. So the problem with sigmoid was, this one actually has very, this one is a bounded function, right? Like this. So if you take derivative on like this region, then derivative like a delta is almost like a 0, right? But in contrast, if you actually use this ReLU, ReLU is is defined like this: y of x. This one, the value is like x if x is positive value. Otherwise, value the output is 0. That's the definition of ReLU, rectified linear unit. So here, this is ReLU function. The good good property of this ReLU is if you take the derivative of this thing, then the value is 1, right? So it doesn't really reduce the absolute value of this like a gradient. So you actually preserve the amount. I mean the absolute value of the gradient to the next layer. So you actually effectively reduce the vanishing gradient problem. Okay? 그러니까 아까 얘기한 대로 아까 얘기한 뭐 시그모이드 펑션 이런 거의 문제는 계속 값을 앞에 레이어로 이제 델타를 이제 계산해가지고 이제 계속 넘겨주고 여기서 계산한 델타를 가지고 또 다음 레이어에 계산하고 쭉 계속 레이어 바이 레이어 계산을 하게 돼 있는데 여기에서 점점 한 단계를 넘어갈 때마다 그 델타 W의 값이 점점 계속 4분의 1 또는 그 이상으로 줄어든다는 거죠. 근데 만약에 우리가 렐루 펑션을 쓰게 되면은 그 아까 얘기한 4분의 1이라는 그 절대값 그 텀이 없어지니까 이게 계속 그냥 그 그레디언트의 그 절대값이 그대로 유지가 되면서 계속 넘어가는 거죠. 다음 레이어로. 그래서 앞쪽에 있는 레이어들도 트레이닝이 잘 되는 그런 이제 장점이 있죠. And the second problem is lack of training data. So here is an example. Let's say, we try to approximate, these like 9 data points. This one actually has like 9 data points. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And there are like multiple ways to approximate this. One is, let's say we use like an order of like third order like approximation. So this one is basically y of x approximation is third order term. Something like a of 3 x3 plus a of 2 x2 plus a of 1 x plus a of 0. This is like a third order polynomial approximation, right? And this one is like a ninth order approximation. So this one is like y of x is, this one starts from a of 9 of x to the power of 9 plus a of 8 times x to the power of 8 and so on up to a of 0. So this is ninth order approximation. This was third order approximation. Okay, and in this case we only have like 4 parameters because parameters a over 3, a over 2, a over 1, a over 0. 4 params. And this one is like a 10 params. Okay. Then what is the problem here? So if you actually use, we only have like 9 data points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, actually 10. We have 10 data points and 10 parameters. Then there will be only one solution, right? Only one set of parameters that actually satisfy all of this thing. 그죠? 그러니까 실제로 10개의 데이터 포인트가 있는데 요거를 만약에 전부 다 10개의 데이터 포인트를 집어넣어서 방정식을 풀면 그럼 10개의 그 파라미터 값을 다 정확하게 구할 수 있겠죠. 그러니까 이렇게 어프록시메이션 하면 이렇게 되는 거죠. 막 이렇게 올라갔다 내려갔다 ninth order polynomial 펑션이 나오겠죠. 그죠? 근데 이게 실제로 어떻게 보면은 우리가 어프록시메이션 하려고 하는 그 true 값에서는 많이 벗어나 있죠. 그죠? 근데 요거는 third order approximation이니까 파라미터 4개밖에 없는데 인풋 데이터는 10개. 대신 우리는 이제 리그레션을 하겠죠. 리그레션 해가지고 가장 가까운 에러 레이스를 미니마이즈하는 이제 셋을 찾아보면은 그래도 비슷하게 나오잖아요. 그죠? 그러니까 여기서 보여주려고 하는 얘기는 뭐냐면은 아까도 얘기한 것처럼 파라미터의 개수랑 인풋 샘플, 그러니까 데이터 포인트의 개수가 보통은 인풋 데이터의 양이 훨씬 많아야지 제대로 이게 어프록시메이션이 잘 된다는 거고 그게 아니라 이게 파라미터의 개수랑 만약에 데이터 포인트의 개수가 또는 인풋 트레이닝 사이즈가 비슷하면 거의 그냥 오버피팅. 그냥 딱 이 포인트만 맞추고 나머지 다른 포인트에 대해서는 잘 어프록시메이션을 잘 못하는, 그죠? 그런 결과가 나온다는 거죠. So that's basically ninth order approximation is perfect for this like training data, but for general input, it gives worse result than third order one because as I said, the number of like input data, I mean the input like samples must be much greater than the number of parameters. That's basically general like requirements for effective training. So here, so in generally speaking, if you increase the training size, then actually that mitigates overfitting problem. This is called overfitting, because overfitting means this one is only correct only for those like the sample data, but not for any other data. So if you increase the training set size, then actually mitigates overfitting problem. So generally, like more data is good. And ImageNet is kind of very popular, historically popular data set for like image classification. It has like over like 15 million labeled like high resolution images. 근데 ImageNet 그 예전에 그 뭐 챌린지 뭐 이런 거 뭐 들어보신 적 있으시죠? 그러니까 사람보다 더 잘한다 뭐 이런 거. 그래서 이게 근데 사실은 사람들이 다 한 거예요. 여러분들 그 아마존 미케니컬 터크라고 그 뭔지 아시는 분들 있을지 모르겠는데 그 사람들 시켜가지고 일하는 거예요. 그러니까 사람이 내가 예를 들면 어떤 되게 단순한 태스크가 있는데 그거를 예를 들면 뭐 태스크당 뭐 이러면 이미지에다 네임을 매기는 거나 뭐 아니면 뭐 아주 단순한 태스크 뭐 스캔한 이미지 주고 그거를 타입해가지고 돌려보내주거나 뭐 이런 거 그런 걸 한 다음에 뭐 그렇게 개당 한 600원 뭐 500원 뭐 이렇게 해서 비드를 하면은 저쪽에 이제 예를 들면 좀 저개발 국가에서 이제 그런 것들 이제 하는 사람들이 이제 그런 거를 매뉴얼리 해가지고 그 리절트를 돌려주는 이제 그런 아마존에서 이제 그런 걸 하는데 그런 걸 이용해가지고 되게 싼 노동력으로 레이블 이미지에다 레이블 다 붙였어요. 그러니까 이게 뭐 도그, 뭐 cat, bear 뭐 이렇게 붙였는데 한 22,000개의 카테고리가 있고 전체 이미지의 개수는 한 15밀리언 1,500만 개 정도 이미지가 있는 거죠. 그래서 이걸 가지고 사람들이 트레이닝도 하고 이거 가지고 이제 인퍼런스 테스트도 해가지고 실제로 얼마만큼 이제 크로스 나오는지 했는데 그래서 이런 컴피티션이 있었고 요게 작년에 끝났어요. 작년에 이제 사람보다 훨씬 잘하게 돼서 이제 끝났고 보통 이제 휴먼 에러레이션 5% 정도라고 하는데 지금 뭐 스테이트 오브 아트는 뭐 에러레이션 2% 뭐 좀 2%대니까 훨씬 잘하는 거, 사람보다 잘하는 거죠. 그래서 이런 컴피티션이 있었고. 네. 오히려 요즘의 트렌드는 그 애큐러시를 예전에 하기 위해서는 딥하게 이제 뉴럴 들어가지고 딥 많이 이제 적용했는데 요즘은 거꾸로 어떻게 하면 샬로우하게 만들까가 좀 중요한 챌린지예요. 왜냐하면 딥하게 만들면은 일단은 처리 시간이 오래 걸리잖아요. 근데 어떤 경우에는 되게 빠른 타임으로 빨리 디텍트하고 이래야 되는 자율주행 같은 경우. 자율주행 같으면은 이게 빨리 이게 인퍼런스가 돼가지고 오브젝트 레코그니션 한 다음에 그걸 가지고 뭔가 디시전 내려가지고 해야 되는 딥하면은 이게 굉장히 첫 번째로 일단은 시간 레이턴시가 길고 그 다음에 컴퓨테이션 양도 되게 많겠죠. 그래서 컴퓨테이션 양을 줄이면서 최대한 가볍고 로우 레이턴시로 만들려고 하는 이제 그런 것들 같은 더 중요한 챌린지가. 네. 그 다음에 하드웨어, 그러니까 뉴럴넷을 가속하기 위한 하드웨어에 대한 얘기는 다음 시간에 하죠. 오늘 거의 시간 끝났으니까 여기까지 하고 다음 시간에 이제 요거 부분 나머지 부분 커버하고 이제 그 다음 시간에 이제 마지막 토픽을 커버.